All right, with me now is, I don't want to sound like I'm patting myself on the back here, but maybe one of the only other people that I can think of in the conservative movement who is so independent, so autonomous that he has no qualms rejecting the Republican Party, the conservative movement, the label conservative in the interest of his principles. This is exactly what we've been talking about for the last couple of days, where if you lack self-awareness, you're not going to adequately observe what the other side is doing. And then before you know it, you're going to see the manifestation of the strategies the left has been using. And once something has taken hold, like once this war in Ukraine happened, once critical race theory is in our schools, it's harder to get rid of these things and to stop it than it would have been to prevent it in the first place had we actually been observant enough to see it happening before it got into basically all of our homes and all of our lives. I like Patriot software, and I know you will too, because Patriot software creates accounting and payroll software that radically simplifies the day-to-day complexities that American businesses like yours and like mine and our accountants face. Patriot's powerful accounting and payroll software is fast, it's simple, it's affordable, and it helps you keep your most scarce resources, which of course is your time and your money. Patriot understands American businesses because of its own humble beginnings in a cold, wet basement of a factory. I actually love this about them because it makes me feel like they relate to what we're going through with our businesses. Patriot software is obsessed with seeing your business succeed because when it does, families are blessed, communities thrive, and our country therefore gets stronger. Patriot software was voted #1 for ease of use, for customer support, for features, and for value for the money by its own users. We all know that users of a product are the harshest critics, so if they vote it #1, you can take their word for it. Go to patriotsoftware.com and use my promo code Liz to get 60 days free use of their accounting and payroll software. And you can see why tens of thousands of business owners and their accountants trust Patriot software. That's patriotsoftware.com, promo code Liz, so you can use the accounting and payroll software for free for 60 days. patriotsoftware.com, promo code Liz. So, of course, I'm talking about host of the Jesse Kelly Show, Jesse Kelly. Jesse, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Well, of course, Liz. I appreciate the kind words. Likewise for you. It's not that I have animosity towards conservatives. It's just that the word conservatism has proven to mean nothing. It hasn't conserved a thing, and so we don't need to beat each other up over that. We need to ask ourselves why it hasn't conserved anything, because we still have a lot of stuff we'd like to conserve around here.
Yeah, certainly. And I think the Republican Party, a lot of people want to be part of a team. They view it like a country club, which can be fun. I mean, everyone loves a country club, but I don't feel loyalty to a party just because they're a party, because I'm a part of it. I feel loyalty to principles, and I feel loyal to the people who I can surround myself with when we share those goals. We can work together as a movement. The Republican Party hasn't always been that way. But one of the things I find very interesting about what you've built, this brand that you've built, this movement that you've started, is you do have a label for yourself. It's not conservative, it's not Republican, it's anti-communist. Can you tell me a little bit about your evolution to that?
Sure. I was, for the longest time, probably considered myself a conservative, a hard right conservative, very, very libertarian, because I believe government should be teeny tiny, although I never really called myself that. If I took some online thing, that's what it would probably pop up as, hey, you're a libertarian. But the truth is, Liz, while we argue about these things, and I'm not acting like these aren't good arguments to have, what should our foreign policy be? What should taxes be? What should these arguments we have on the right? I'm not acting like they're not important. They are important, but they're going to be null and void unless we stop the communists first. What we're doing right now is we've been surrounded culturally, as you know, you talk about this all the time. I love your show, but we're surrounded culturally. They took over every single cultural pillar. They have the education system, the military, they got your friggin' doctor's office at this point in time. They have all of it. And unless that stops, here's what we look like. You know what we look like? We look like some medieval castle under siege, and the enemy's at the walls, and they're battering down the gates. They're coming through the gates, and we're gathering together in the town square to have a hearty debate over which color the drapes should be. That's what we look like when we squabble about this stuff. They need to be stopped first, because nothing else matters. If they're not stopped, They will destroy all of us, no matter what you consider yourself, conservative, liberal. None of that stuff matters to me at all. Stop them, and then I'll probably just walk away and y'all work out whatever you want it to be after that. They have to be stopped. We have to push them back from the walls, or these other arguments mean nothing.
Yeah, and one of the things that I repeat incessantly, to the point that I think that everyone who sits with me every day on my show, all the viewers and listeners probably laugh at me for saying this so much, is if we don't acknowledge the reality of the political enemy that we face, then we won't fight well against them. And if we don't fight well, we're not going to win. And I want to win. So job number one is to identify what the enemy is, who they are, the people, their ideology, the tactics and the strategies that they're using. That's a little bit of what I want to do today, because we've seen for decades now in our country, the Republican Party and the conservative movement has failed to identify what the enemy is and what their tactics are. So, for example, with gay marriage, a lot of Republicans were like, hey, I don't want homosexuality criminalized. We don't believe in pushing gay people off the roofs of buildings like they do in Saudi Arabia or Iran. We don't want that. So sure, you can have gay marriage. It doesn't make a difference to me. Not realizing that the left's strategy was to use government officials, politicians, to redefine a word that they have no authority to redefine, therefore giving themselves the power as the quote-unquote arbiter of truth that truly was just the first step into the insanity that we're experiencing right now in our culture with transgenderism and the redefinition of almost every word that we can think of, the redefinition of what truth is. This happened the same thing with our public schools. Oh, okay, let's take prayer out of public schools so that, Muslim kids aren't offended, so that Jewish kids aren't offended if they're saying prayers to Jesus. And what that really was, of course, was a tactic used by the left to try to insert their atheist, secular religion into the school system. So what I want to ask you today is, what do you see as the next frontier? What do you see coming that hasn't already blossomed as a result of the left's agenda here in the United States?
Pedophilia. Open pedophilia. If I had to you want me to put a fine point on it, that's what it will be. People are already horrified now. I know everyone sees it. Everyone watching right now, if you're online or you've been to the doctor's office recently, I was just at the doctor's office recently. I'm fine. Don't worry, anybody. But I had to fill out the little box of your first name, last name, whatever. And then it got down to the point of male, female, check your sex. That's what the box always was. And what do you think it was? Everyone knows exactly what I'm about to say. It was male, female, non-binary, all this other insanity crap. And I did what everyone does. I rolled my eyes. I'll never be back to that doctor's office, but I rolled my eyes, filled it out, moved on. Okay, this is stuff. But I want everyone to realize this, because what I'm about to say is going to feel shocking. But 10 years ago, if you found one of those pieces of paper in one doctor's office in this country, there would have been international outrage. People would have accused you of faking it, and you never would have seen it in your life. Now, I would argue that's the majority of the drop-down boxes there are out there. Because this is actually going to go to the mentality you were just talking about. We have forever, and I made this mistake in my youth too, thought that we were dealing with bad. These guys are bad. Oh, this is bad, or misguided, or stupid. It's bad. We love to say that it's bad. But here's the problem if you think about the left that way, if you think about these communists that way. Bad has a limit. Bad has a stopping point. It can get bad enough, and then they're going to wake up and realize, okay, well, this isn't working. We should stop. This is that old line we always used all the time of, hey, these college kids will stop being liberal once they earn a paycheck, because we just thought they were bad, right? Okay, they'll have a limit. They'll take too many taxes out. They'll switch conservative. But they didn't switch conservative. Why didn't they do that? Because we're not dealing with bad. We're dealing with evil. And that makes people very uncomfortable, because then you're getting into some sort of a spiritual realm or religious realm. But unless you understand, whatever you believe, that you're dealing with evil, you will never take these people on. The difference between bad and evil is bad has a bottom and evil does not. Demons don't ever wake up. Ever, ever, ever. They never wake up. I don't know if they sleep, but they never wake up in a day and say, guys, you know what? I think we've gone far enough. I think this has been bad enough. We should stop. They never have that moment. It goes down and down and down without end until good stops it. And so when I tell people this, that you're about to see pedophilia normalized, within 10 years, you're about to see MAP, minor attracted person, on that drop-down box in your doctor's office. You can say I'm crazy. You can say it's sick. You can say, Jesse, it will never happen. Well, if I told you non-binary would be on my doctor's office in Texas 10 years ago, you would have said that would never happen. That's only one example, but that's one place we're going, and we're going there quickly, because the right, again, back to the mentality you just brought up, has this mentality that's pathetic. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I've shared it, so I can't point fingers at everyone else. We have a live and let live mentality. That doesn't work when you're dealing with people who don't want to live and let live. I don't care what you do. I want to be left alone. Now, that sounds nice. That sounds like a great way to live your life. That's how I want to live my life. But if I don't care what you do and I want to be left alone, but you very much care what I do and you want to come through my fence, you want to come into my home, you want to steal my goods, you want to take my sons away from me. Well, I can't live and let live my way out of that. We actually brag on the right all the time about not using power. Well, we can't do that. Well, it wouldn't be right. That's not constitutional. How do you think you're going to take these people on when all they do is use power if you think you're somehow above that or beyond that? Freedom is not something you acquire by practicing it. We didn't have freedom in this country because of the Constitution. I love the Constitution. You have freedom because brave men went and shot somebody in the face and earned you freedom. Freedom has to be earned. That's the bottom line.
And by the way, I do want to mention the reason that I'm so comfortable being so critical of the conservative movement and the Republican Party for not seeing these things coming, for making that assumption that you're talking about, that we're just fighting against stupid or fighting against bad versus fighting against evil, is because I was that way too. I think this is something that's happened to a lot of people over the course of the past 5 years. Is there's a phrase that we use for it. It's called red pilled, that we've become based. We are now basing our worldview in reality versus basing it in a utopian view that's told to us by the party. And I did used to be more libertarian. I did used to be in that philosophical camp. I did used to think that we were in a negotiation with well-intentioned people who were just kind of stupid and dumb, and that voters would wake up when they saw that these policies hurt them. And I likewise had my eyes open to the fact that, nope, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're in. And that's why some of my policy positions have changed. That's why a lot of people who are listening to this show, their policy positions have changed. The politicians that they like or dislike, that's changed. But this thing that you mentioned is really heavy. This thing that you mentioned is really one of the creepiest things that I can think of in politics: pedophilia. This is, I think, what most of us consider to be the epitome of evil. Take us a little bit on your journey to why you're predicting this. What have you seen that leads you to believe that this is going to be the next step? Why would this be the next step? Tell us about this.
Let's talk about gas stoves. Now, this is going to answer your question. Just bear with me for a second. Let's talk about gas stoves. This is a great example of this. This is why I think this way. We see the same thing play out time and time again with the communists. They do this all the time in America. They've been doing this forever, where they will give you a little preview of something they absolutely are about to do and give you a preview of. Remember the gas stove thing? And no one even heard of a gas stove ban, 2 weeks ago, a month ago? I don't know when this popped up, but we heard they're going to ban gas stoves. And what happened? They floated out this story, they're going to ban gas stoves. And the right, you, me, everyone else, you probably talked about it on your show. I definitely talked about it on mine. We lost our minds. What? You can't, this is crazy. Ban the gas stoves. You can't do that. And then what did they do? They've done this with every policy ever. They immediately started rolling out articles by saying, these nutballs think we're going to ban gas stoves. Quit being paranoid. Nobody's coming for your gas stove. Calm down. And things kind of calmed down. It was about 24, 48 hours of outrage. And we've all kind of moved on. Now we're doing what? We're talking about Trump's indictment and Xi Jinping and Putin and all these other things. So we've all moved on. They're banning gas stoves. They're banning them in New York. They're banning them in California. Enough states will ban them that the gas stove industry itself will collapse and go away. This is what they do. They tell you what they're planning on. They've been doing this with pedophilia now for the past couple years. Not often, but every now and then they'll sprinkle out some article, or some nutball history professor or professor at Berkeley or something will talk about how they're attracted to kids. And then there'll be some big outrage and the guy will get put on leave for a couple weeks and slowly come back in, and we all kind of move on. But why do you really think they're so anxious to have a drag queen wave his penis in front of your child? That doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't mean there should be no way. They're conditioning you. They're conditioning your children for sexual humiliation. And I understand you have families who watch your show, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But if people are aware at all of things like the Petest experiments in Romania and things that happened to the priests in Spain where they were gang raping the nuns, I won't go into all the details of it. But communism, because it's an evil religion of destruction, has used sexual degradation always as part of a way to tear down the fabric of a society. And part of tearing down the fabric in America, you must destroy the man-woman nuclear family. You must. There's no such thing as a communist country that has strong nuclear families. It's the antithesis of communism. So they must do this. They're coming for your children for a reason. They look at your children like they are wounded lambs and they are wolves, as that famous meme out there is going. It's the inevitable next step. It's not even something that I say, oh, it might happen. It's coming. I guarantee it's coming.
I like Genucel, and I think you will too. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, our friends at Genucel are including both the Ultra Retinol and the Dark Spot Corrector in their most popular package at Genucel.com/Liz. Right now, I got you a great deal. You can save over 70% off Genucel's most popular package just in time for the warm spring weather. Featuring Genucel's Ultra Retinol that contains a powerful retinol alternative, safe on your skin in the summer sun, and Genucel's Dark Spot Corrector to reduce the appearance of dark marks and sunspots from long summer days outside. I cannot wait. Plus, you'll still receive Genucel's world-class under eye bag product for those annoying under eye bags and puffiness. And with its immediate effects, you can see results in as little as 12 hours guaranteed or your money back. Don't wait. Visit Genucel.com/Liz to save over 70% off their most popular package. Plus, every order subscription includes a luxury gift box with 2 free springtime essentials. That's 2 free gifts plus free concierge shipping for a limited time. Go to Genucel.com/Liz. That's GENUCEL.com/Liz. Genucel.com/Liz. I think queer theory substantiates what you're saying. I mean, what we're seeing in public schools, the transgender ideology is the manifestation of queer theory. The founder of queer theory, the woman who wrote the founding document, outright advocates for child pornography and for, she calls pedophiles, quote, men who love underage boys. It's beyond evil. It's the devil incarnate. It's disgusting. But here's my other question for you. It's along the same track, but a different topic. So Joe Biden just vetoed the first bill that he's vetoed his entire presidency. It was actually a bipartisan bill that was sent to him by Congress that would have disallowed, we talked about this for a minute on the show a couple days ago, that would have disallowed fiduciaries who manage your retirement portfolio from investing your money in using ESG metrics, deciding whether to give your money to companies that are, sending their employees to other states for abortions and trying to ban fossil fuels and advocating that you eat cricket powder in all of your, and Bill Gates fake meat and all that stuff. So these companies that your fiduciaries now will be allowed to invest your financial future in are woke companies. You will not get a good return on your investment. Joe Biden vetoed this because ESG is one of the coming things. It's already in our country, yes, but it's not entirely in our country. It's seeded, it's there, it's operating, but it hasn't fully taken over our country. What do you foresee ESG doing or being once it has taken control? And is it too late to eradicate it?
Yes and no. It is too late to eradicate it from our shores simply because so much of the United States government and Fortune 500 corporate America, they're all in on it. That's part of the reason. The other part of the reason is normal Americans don't know what it is. And they sound like, they think you sound like a conspiracy theorist when you brought it up. Liz, a few months ago, I was at a party with my friends. I don't live in DC and New York, as you know. I don't hang out with political people. I hang out with normal people. And on the weekend, we were at the neighbor's house having a couple beers. Man, we're just all husbands, wives, just neighborhood party, standard stuff. And somehow the concept of ESG came up. And I brought up at the table, I said, you all understand that your bank, this insanity of ESG. I explained what it was. And I said, you all understand that your bank is already doing this, right? And they all said, oh, Jesse, you're such an idiot. Jesse, what a nutball. Stop doing the radio show. Jesse, you're crazy. And I said, okay, everybody right here, everyone at the table, every one of you, pull out your phone and look up the name of your bank in ESG. And I bet you your bank has an ESG page on their own website with a score for how many women and gays and minorities and things like that they've had. And they all thought I was nuts. You could have heard a pin drop in that party for the next 5 minutes as they all looked in horror at their bank. This is something that is so ingrained already in our systems, but so few Americans even know what it is. And if you bring it up, they'll roll their eyes or they don't want to deal with it. America itself, federally, when it comes to ESG, is totally screwed. And I mean turbo screwed. But the states, the red states, because this is going to be our future anyway, a coalition of red states, they're starting to attack it. And that's really where our real power lies, is a coalition of red states attacking it and creating a parallel economy, because we're going to need a pact of our own thing going forward.
Well, you sound real fun at a party, Jesse. I got to tell you, I got to put you on my invitation list.
I didn't bring it up.
Sure you didn't. Sure you didn't. People were just casually talking about ESG and it had nothing to do with you. I contest that. I question that. Okay, I want to watch a couple of videos with you and get your reaction to it. The first one is Robin DiAngelo. For anybody that doesn't know who Robin DiAngelo is, she is this crazy white woman who wrote a book called White Fragility. Probably heard of it. White Fragility was a massive best-selling book that essentially, like I said, was written by a white woman telling other white people that they are racist. She was kind of like the Ibram X. Kendi that came before Ibram X. Kendi. She makes tons and tons of money going around and lecturing white people about essentially critical race theory, telling them that they're inherently racist because of the color of their skin. This is her latest, though. This is her latest. She actually is arguing that black people should segregate themselves from white people. Take a look at this.
And then I'm a big believer in affinity space and affinity work. And I think people of color need to get away from white people and have some community with each other. And I'll let that go and maybe see if anyone else wants to pick it up.
Jesse, didn't Scott Adams, who is the founder of the cartoon strip Dilbert, didn't he just basically lose his career for saying the exact same thing?
Well, no, he didn't say the exact same thing, because white people aren't the malcontents right now in this nation. And what communism really is, people think it's about workers and things like that. That's nothing to do with it. It's never been about that. Just let me go off here for a second, Liz. Communism is not about what they tell you it's about. That's why communism looked so different in China than it did in the Soviet Union. In the Soviet Union, it was about the urban poor. And when the Soviets were trying to push it into China, when Mao was coming up, they were telling them, hey, focus on the urban poor, focus on the urban poor. And Mao and his boys said, you guys are idiots. We don't have malcontented urban poor here. Our urbans are fine. It's rural poor. So we have to focus on the hinterlands first. That's why it looked different in Cambodia than it did in China or the Soviet Union. Communism is simply the religion of the malcontent. You find the people who are malcontented and use their bitterness to tear a society apart and give you power. The communists came to America and tried the standard worker thing here back when the Soviets brought it all here, and it all fell on deaf ears because our workers have it great. So they thought, well, we need different malcontents. America has them. Every country has them. So who'd they find? Well, who are the malcontents today? You got the BLM race hustlers like that idiot there. You got the LGBTQ demon mob, the climate nutters, the feminists are always mad about something, so on and so forth. You found your malcontents. Now you recruit them like an army and use them to destroy the nation you hate. Right now, there's quite obviously a war on white people, but it's not really about race. Don't get me wrong, that's how it has manifested itself. White people are now systemically oppressed by this government. Joe Biden, first thing he did when he took office was tell white business owners to go to the back of the line for PPP loans. There's open anti-white racism all over the place, but that's not really the goal. The goal is simply to use these morons like that lady to try to divide up society so they can conquer it and burn it to ash. The race portion of it is just another finger on the same fist of communism that's taken a whole different form here.
And I think, too, I would add one thing to that. It's not just an identification of who's the pre-existing malcontents, but Marxism specifically, which is an offshoot, it is communism under a specific name. Marxism teaches that you should create. You should actually create. You should instill. You should brainwash. You should re-educate populations into believing that they are malcontents, and that's exactly what she's doing. So the next thing, this came from the diversity chief at the Pentagon, a title that's quite unbelievable that it even exists. Her name is Calissa Wing. This is from a couple months ago, but it's making the rounds again. This is what she tweeted on her Twitter account. She said, I'm so exhausted at these white folks in these PD sessions. This lady actually had the caudacity, spelled like you would if you were combining Caucasian with audacity, caudacity to say that black people can be racist too. I had to stop the session and give Karen the business. We are not the majority. We don't have the power. Your reaction, Jesse?
That's exactly how it's always. Look, this is how it always goes. Liz, you You know about this. You know about the Cultural Revolution in China at the time. People forget that the communists had power for 17 years when Mao launched his communist revolution in China. And what did he do? How did he do it? He gave all these young people who felt like they weren't getting a fair shake. He told them all, hey, you've been oppressed, you've been oppressed, you've been oppressed. These people are the enemy. The older people are the enemy. Old ideas, old traditions, these things are all the enemy. And you need to go do something about it. And eventually you had students beating their teachers to death with bats that had nails in them. This is the exact same thing that's happening here in this nation. It's sad, but it's catching on. And what's most sad now is now we have legions and legions of white people who fall for this now. You have these poor kids who are depressed, and that's why half these kids are choosing to go trans or whatever new fruitcake idea is out there today, because they don't want to be the oppressor. They don't want to be the bad guy in this society. They want to be one of the victims like the good guys are. It's really twisted up the minds of a society. But look, like you said, Liz, the scariest part is that the Pentagon even has a freaking DEI director, but it is what it is.
I highly recommend American Hartford Gold because it's not only me, I know you guys feel the same way. The future feels more insecure and uncertain by the day. At every turn, we're getting less for more, while record high inflation, soaring interest rates, which increased again, and the looming recession are threatening our businesses, our jobs, and most scary of all, our retirement funds. Even Fed Chair Powell warned us to brace for more pain. I don't want to do that. Fortunately, there's a way to secure your hard-earned nest egg to avoid it. You can do what I did. You can call the only precious metals dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. They make it simple and easy to protect your savings and your retirement accounts with physical gold and silver. With one short phone call, they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. American Hartford Gold is the highest rated firm in the country with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 866-781-7499. That's 866-781-7499. Or text Liz to 65532. Again, the phone number is 866-781-7499. Or text LIZ to 65532. It's sad. It's really sad. So speaking of children who have bought into the transgender ideology, there's a kid by the name of Jazz Jennings. This is actually his stage name. We're not sure what his real name is, first or last name. Jazz Jennings was the quote-unquote first transgender kid whose parents said that he came out as transgender at age 5. By age 7, he had a show on TLC that was documenting his transition. He's now been fully surgically transitioned. It's truly a heartbreaking story, horrifying, also heartbreaking. But this clip, Jesse, wrenched my heart, truthfully. Watching this clip, watching this young man who was presenting as a woman, who was medically and socially, surgically, quote-unquote, transitioned, is telling his mother that he just doesn't feel like himself. Take a look at this.
So, are you feeling like you wanted to start talking about... Are you okay?
I'm okay.
I'm like going to cry. But
You know I can't get out of my head.
I know. Listen.
It just doesn't stop.
It's okay. Give me a hug. It's okay. I know what you're going through. We've been there before.
No, it still doesn't stop now.
I
And
know.
I'm already going
Well,
back to negative.
But the more you're talking about yourself, it gets harder. You're digging in and it's making you put a magnifying glass on what's already difficult as it is. So this is hard for you, I know, and we don't want to push you
I
anymore.
know I'm the one doing it. Like,
I know, you're your own worst enemy.
I feel kind of all over the place and like my mind is very cluttered and not clear. And I really want to have that clarity. I really want to understand myself and be able to read my own soul and what I want. And it's just very challenging. And I think I'm kind of breaking down a little bit and spiraling into negativity.
I just want to feel like myself. Like, that's
Right.
it. I don't
Like the
care.
old Jazz?
All I want is to be happy and feel like me, and I don't feel like
What
me
is me?
ever.
Jesse, that breaks my heart.
That makes me want to kill somebody. I don't know what you want me to say. I see what they've done to these poor daggone kids. It makes me want to kill somebody. What chance does that kid have at a normal life? None. It's been taken away from him by his scumbag parents, by some scumbag psychiatrist, some scumbag doctor, scumbag TLC for putting it on the air, some innocent child who deserved, a shot at life. Has no shot at all. It would be a disaster the rest of his life now. And it was all taken from him, and it makes me sick, and it makes me want to hurt people. That's the truth.
I feel like I'm often desensitized to some of the terrible things that we both talk about that happen on the news. This is what we do for a living. But once in a while, there are things that just kick me in the gut. And that video is one of them, because this is a young man who, I don't mean to sound preachy, was made in the image and likeness of God and was completely abused and exploited by his parents. It's awful. We also have Dylan Mulvaney, this TikTok star who has almost 11 million followers on TikTok, just a cultural phenomenon. Even President Joe Biden invited him to the White House based on that series Days of Girlhood that went viral. We've showed clips of this on the show off and on for the past couple of months since it's been really popular. This clip, however, is one of the most disturbing clips of Dylan Mulvaney that he has published yet online, in which he dresses up and pretends to be not just a woman, which is offensive enough and delusional enough, but actually a little child, a little girl child. Take a look at this.
I am Eloise. I am 6. I'm a city child. I live at the Plaza Hotel, which is huge and wonderful and très elegant, especially at Christmas time.
Yeah, I have a similar reaction to that. It kind of brings it back to those paraphilias that you were mentioning before. That's pretty messed up.
It's inevitable. You know what makes me mad, Liz? And I don't want to sound like an old man, although I'm a lot older than you. I'm 41. I have gray in my beard. I'm balding. I don't want to know who that person is. I wanted to die whenever the good Lord takes me home. I wanted to die without knowing that Dylan Mulvaney existed on this planet. But now I know who he is, and I've known who he was for last week or two, because this is what it takes to become some cultural celebrity in this society. If you just turn yourself into enough of a circus freak, you'll be praised for it around here, because we don't celebrate merit or accomplishment or success anymore. It's whoever can humiliate themselves and humiliate this nation the most. That's who gets held up as some sort of lofty standard around here. I don't want to know who that person is, Liz, and now it's in my brain and I'll never be able to get it out.
Well, you and me both, I suppose. I would have been. I'm always interested in knowing who people actually are, but this is a delusional version of this person. So the reason I picked these particular videos to talk about isn't just because they're wild and crazy, perverted and weird videos. It's because when we're talking about recognizing what's coming, recognizing the reality of the political enemy that we face, recognizing the tactics that they're using before it manifests in our country, and understanding that ESG, these environmental, social, and governance metrics, which you're correct, by the way, 85% of the American people don't know what this is, and which is why I talk about it all the time. I want people to know what this is, because this is here, this is coming, this is a threat, this is going to change everything about every aspect of our life. These are the things, this Dylan Mulvaney stuff, this transgender stuff, this racialism stuff. This is the stuff that's going to be permanently embedded in our society if we allow ESG to become essentially a ruling class in and of itself.
Oh, of course. It's going to become, think about people are horrified by what's happening to the military now, Liz. Think what it's going to be when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs is a transsexual. People know that day is coming, right? People understand where we're going, what we're going to look like on the world stage. And this is going to be, look, these are hard times. I will tell you, for me, I love my country so much. I would die for it. I have moments where I actually get pretty low, where I just look at where we're at and I lament not only where we're at, where we're going, because it's not only this moment in time. When you look at the future of where this stuff is going, because like you just said, people don't know. They don't know, so they're not fighting it. Therefore, these evil monsters don't have any incentive to stop. As you see where this is going to go down the road, here's the truth. Other countries are already looking at us the way we used to look at some Middle Eastern country where women are treated like crap. We've all done that, right? Where you got the women, they're walking around in the full burqa and you can't even see their eyes, and maybe they're on a leash or something. And we as Americans, this was hot and heavy during the war on terror, we look at that and go, look at those barbarians. I've got news for you. They have televisions too. How do you think they look at us? You saw that video of Dylan Mulvaney. What do you think? Do you think the people in that barbaric country you were just making fun of, do you think they look at the United States of America right now and say, wow, the land of the free looks like it's on point. I think I want to go there. They look at us the same way we looked at them.
And perhaps worse, in all these communist countries, especially the communist countries like China, or the ones that are maybe closet socialists like the Soviet Union, they're certainly not going to be afraid of us. Jesse, we didn't talk about it today because we're going to talk about it in a couple of months when it's a little bit closer, but you have a book coming out. Do you want to tell people about it?
I do. I'm always willing to come on your show and sell my book, Liz, because I'm a capitalist. No, it is the Anti-Communist Manifesto. I hate writing. I have never written a book before. I'll never write I don't think I'll write another one. This was something that was on my heart. It was eating at me. How does all this stuff translate to communism? What's the history of it? How do we fight back against it? It's not just pointing out the problems. How do we fight back against the LGBTQ crap? How do we fight back against all this race hustling? How do we do that? I wrote a book about it. Some humor in there. The Anti-Communist Manifesto. You can buy it at jessekellybook.com. You got to pre-order it, but jessekellybook.com.
I wish I could recommend it, but you didn't send me a copy yet, so I'll have to take your word for it until I read it. Jesse, thank you for coming on the show, and of course, everyone should go buy his book now, and we'll talk about it more after I read it, after, he mails me a copy. Jesse, thanks for being on the show.
Be good, Liz.
That guy cracks me up. I love him. And by the way, that's a true story. I booked him today to talk about his book because what I said at the beginning was true. There's very few people, especially in the commentary world, who will kind of push away from the label conservative or Republican and identify themselves as the opposition to the ideology that seeks to harm us. Jesse Kelly's one of them. I highly respect that, even though he's wrong about things like the national divorce. For reasons, if you missed our debate from a couple weeks ago, check it out online. I think it was a pretty good encapsulation of this argument within the Republican Party. But I booked him today to talk about his book, The Anti-Communist Manifesto. He agreed to it a couple hours ago, or not a couple hours ago, I guess it was yesterday. I texted him, I was like, hey, you want to shoot me a copy of your book? Preferably on the Kindle version, so I can take a look at it so I know what we're talking about. And he's like, oh, we don't have that yet. So you should buy the book, but I'll let you know what I think of it after I actually read it, after he actually gets copies, because it's going to be out in a couple months. The point of all of this is that we are going to be talking about ESG for the foreseeable future. In fact, I am going to harp on ESG so incessantly that it becomes on the tip of all of our tongues, because ESG is the next big thing. Just like critical race theory happened and then the transgender ideology happened, the next thing that's going to control every aspect of our lives is ESG, and we're not going to be able to push back on it. Right now, if you go into your workplace, if you go into your university, you will always have some chief diversity officer or a DEI coordinator, these huge initiatives. There's all this administrative bureaucracy with DEI at any place. You walk into Target, you walk into Bank of America, you walk into the University of Cincinnati, whatever it might be, and you can't push back on this because you as a consumer, whether you're a student at a school or a donor at a school, whether you're a customer at a store or a restaurant, you don't have any leverage anymore to get rid of these DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is just racism, religious discrimination, or discrimination and religious persecution. You don't have any power anymore to push back on this, because even if you choose, okay, well, I'm no longer going to give you my business, I'm going to boycott you, I'm going to use my money like a vote, it doesn't matter, because these businesses are locked into this woke behavior, like sending their employees to other states and paying for abortions. They're locked into this behavior by ESG. They don't have the individual, or at least the within their own business, they don't have the power to just get rid of this, because if they do, then their ESG score will be lowered. And if their ESG score is lowered, they won't be able to do business. They will be punished in the marketplace. So instead of considering you as a customer to be your threat to leave their business to be punishment in the marketplace, and that being then the leverage that impacts their behavior, ESG is now what they're prioritizing. ESG is what they have to listen to. And it's just going to get worse. Greta Thunberg, this child that went viral for saying, how dare you, to the United Nations about climate change. She claimed that the world was going to be destroyed by climate change by the year 2023. Funny, she just deleted that tweet last week because it is now 2023 and her prophecy did not come true. She deleted the tweet without mentioning why she was wrong, which cracks me up. These are the climate alarmists. Since the 1970s, they've been telling us that all the polar bears are going to die and all the ice caps are going to melt and there's going to be 50 million climate refugees and places are going to be flooded. Coastal cities are going to be flooded and cease to exist. We're going to have mass starvation and another ice age. None of it ever happens. None of their predictions, their apocalyptic predictions, have ever come true. And they just ignore the fact. They just blast past it and continue acting like they have any credibility. And shame on all of us as a population all around the globe. We also act like they still have credibility. Greta Thunberg is one of these people, but she was just given an honorary doctorate from the University of Helsinki. I don't know if you guys ever have a word that you almost always mispronounce. You have to be very cognizant of how you say it so that you don't mispronounce it. Like, remember when George Bush said the word, he goes, nuclear. any like mispronounce it by like a syllable. Helsinki is that one for me. I always want to say Helsinki, even though it's Helsinki. But the University of Helsinki just gave Greta Thunberg an honorary doctorate in theology. Like what? What? I saw that. I actually made me laugh out loud because I thought, oh yeah, that's actually right. Because her climate alarmism is a religion. It's not science. It's nothing to do with science. It's a cult. It's a cult, which is a religion. So yeah, giving her a doctorate in theology, maybe she does understand how to operate a cult. But this sort of thing, this climate alarmism, this will be embedded so deeply into our society that it will impact us. Not just going to a restaurant and using one of those sucky paper straws that disintegrates in your mouth after you've taken 2 sips of it. Not just that stuff, but all of our business decisions, our ability to operate in the market, our lifestyle choices, our ability to own a car, to own a gas-powered lawnmower, our ability to own property in the suburbs, a single-family dwelling, our ability to eat meat, our ability to do all of these things that are part of our everyday life, to take medicine that's actually made from petrochemicals, to buy clothes that are made also from petrochemicals. All of these different things we won't be able to do anymore because of the environmental part of ESG, the environmental metrics, because companies won't allow you to do that stuff because otherwise they'll be downgraded on ESG, and we won't be able to do anything about it because it's not the individual company listening to consumers anymore. It's the individual company turning away from consumers and looking instead to their ESG rating, because it's the only way that they'll be able to stay in business, even if their business isn't as successful as it would be without ESG. There's also a hockey player, NHL player by the name of James Reimer. He plays for the San Jose Sharks. And this past weekend, the San Jose Sharks hosted a Pride Night where all of their players wore these specially created pride jerseys, like the rainbow flag, like all the colors of their branding changed to make it look like pride. Gay pride, I should say, LGBTQ plus pride, that whole thing, like the trans flag and the co-opting of the rainbow and all of that. And James Reimer decided not to wear that jersey, and it created a controversy because that's what the LGBTQ lobby is. They're not looking for equality. They're not looking for tolerance. They're looking for you to be forced to adhere to their ideology, or else they try to cancel you. James Reimer issued a statement that said, under the umbrella of the NHL's hockey is the For Everyone initiative, the San Jose Sharks have chosen to wear jerseys in support of the LGBTQIA plus community tonight. For all 13 years of my NHL career, I have been a Christian, not just in title, but in how I choose to live my life daily. I have a personal faith in Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for my sins, and in response, asks me to love everyone and follow him. I have no hate in my heart for anyone, and I've always strived to treat everyone that I encounter with respect and kindness. In this specific instance, I'm choosing not to endorse something that's counter to my personal convictions, which are based on the Bible, the highest authority in my life. I strongly believe that every person has value and worth, and the LGBTQIA plus community, like all others, should be welcomed in all aspects of the game of hockey. And then he signed it, James Reimer. First of all, kudos to this guy. Immense respect for this man who stood up for his beliefs in such a respectful, loving, actually tolerant way. But this kind of stuff won't be possible. We won't be allowed to do this because companies will be downgraded on an ESG rating if somebody associated with their corporation, their brand, in this case, someone on their team, is acting in this way. They will score lower on an ESG rating. And so you won't be allowed. They will fire you, or they won't hire you if they think that this is what you believe, because it's in contradiction to the radical leftist neo-Marxist ideology that underpins ESG. It's for this reason why we're going to talk about ESG until the cows come home. No pun intended here. Since aren't cows supposed to, didn't AOC tell us that cow flatulence is going to be the end of the world or something, that is CO2 emissions that's going to warm the planet or something horrible. We're going to talk about this until the cows come home. My goal over the next however long it takes is to change that number, that 85% of the American people right now do not know what ESG is. My goal is to change that. My goal is for you and I to change that together, to demonstrate to the American people that if we don't know what's coming, if we don't have the self-awareness and the foresight to identify not only the political enemy that we're facing, but the tactics that they're using, then their tactics will be effective. Whatever their strategy is, they will embed their ideology around us before we're aware of it. And once it's here, once it's taken root, once it's part of the fabric of our nation, it's really hard to eradicate. We must identify these threats before they manifest. And let me tell you, the next threat is ESG. So tell your friends about it. Tell your family about it. Tell your kids about it. Tell your parents about it. Educate our country before it's too late. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.